So last video, I don't know what happened to these two examples, but they weren't there, so there were a little bit more of these. I'm sure some of you would have been able to crack the code and do this already. This is just foil, but you're doing more advanced stuff. But anyways, I'm still gonna go through these examples with you just because I'm a nice person. So what happens when you have these trinomials? There's three terms multiplied to each other. Well, we go by the same path. We multiply the first by all of these terms and the second and so on. So let's just do it. Let's just cut straight to it. 2x4 and then plus x to the power of 3 and minus 2x squared. That is the first one. And then I usually like to write it like this. Minus 3x squared. Sorry, minus, no, I was looking at the wrong one. So minus 6x cubed and then minus 3x squared and plus 6x. And then on the last one, it's going to be minus 2x squared minus x plus 2. And then eventually when we add all of these terms up, we're going to have a beautifully written entire thing. So 2x4, that's not going to change. Simply because there's nothing to do here. So 2x4 drops down. And then on this level, we have x to the x cubed minus 6x cubed. Drop that down. And then we have x squared, which is a small, oh sorry, this catches an issue because that was a squared one. And see guys, this is why you should list them in this order. So you know this row, and this row. So now that's minus 2, minus 3, minus 2. So that's going to be negative 5, negative 7, minus 7x squared. And then finally here, we have plus 6x minus x plus 5x plus 2, which is right here. So this is essentially the answer of that. I like to do it in rows. However, this is on the laptop, so I can't write that clearly. But if you were on paper, you would have done much better. Now, squared is just the same thing. It's just y squared minus 2y plus 5. And then we're going to multiply that by itself again. When you have a trinomial squared, it usually looks much more cleaner. So let's just get straight to it. Y to the 4 minus 2y cubed plus 5y squared, and then I'm gonna write it big this time so we can actually see, you can actually see me using the method. And then plus 4y squared minus 10y, and then on the right we'll have plus 5y squared minus 10y, and then plus 25 plus 25. And then we drag that out down here. That's going to be y4 minus 4y cubed plus 14y squared minus 20y plus 25. And that is our answer with 5 different terms. That should be completely clear. And now, let's move on to today's lesson, which is simplifying rational expressions. Rational expression. So, what are rational expressions? As I said a while ago, it's actually fractions, and it really is. So rational expressions is we have some sort of stuff up there, up on the denominator, up on the numerator, and something down on the denominator. And usually these aren't just numbers. These are some complex stuff. There's x in there, there's y in there, there's a bunch of different variables, and we're gonna learn how to simplify it. And on top of simplifying it, we also have to state the restriction of a rational expression. So many of us know that in grade 10, whenever you divide something by 0, or to say whenever you divide anything by 0, you're always going to get undefined as an answer. Simply because anything divided by 0 just does not exist. You can't divide it by 0. So essentially, that means our denominator cannot be 0, because this is actually just the division sign. This whole lash is just the division sign. So the bottom cannot equal to 0. So let's start right away. How do we exactly simplify it? Well, you can't just go ahead and straight up do the division. That's not how it works here. We have to first factor, and when they're multiplied together, that is the only time when we can actually simplify it. So let's see it. So what is a common denominator at the top? You might tell straight away that's 6x, and then let's simplify. Let's factor that common factor that out. Assuming you have no problem with common factoring, that will be 4x squared plus x plus 2 over 6x. And now, since this term, there's actually a multiplication sign here. So since these are multiplied together, we can actually simplify it. And that's going to go ahead and give us 4x squared plus x plus 2. That is going to be our answer because we can actually we can actually factor it, and then we simplify the expression. So we cancel the top and bottom. And when we simplified it, we realized 6x, it cannot equal to 0. So if we can, this is just a division question. You can divide this by 6, and 0 divided by 6, 0 divided by anything is 0. So x cannot equal to 0. And that is the only restriction we have because our denominator did not change entire time. But later on, you will see it will change. So how does this one exactly work out? We'll factor out, so on the top there's an x, so we're going to factor out an x at the bottom. That's usually how it works. You may notice that we can factor out 1 more 2, but it doesn't really matter. 1 over 2x minus 4. And that is pretty much it. Yeah, that is that. I believe so. And now we have to state the restriction. So in this case, when we had x here, because we factored it out. So x cannot equal to 0, because if it was 0, this entire term just doesn't matter. And then x, so 2x, this bracket cannot equal to 0, so 2x minus 4 cannot equal to 0. Move the 4 over, 2x is equal to 4, x cannot equal to 2, because when x equals to 2, the bracket is 0, so no matter what x is going to be, it's always going to be 0. And so, this is in the simplest form. Usually your teacher would ask you to put that in a bracket, which is like this. You simplify another 2 out of it, and then that is the most simplified form, and our restriction is x cannot equal to 0 or 2. And that is our restriction. That's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. And let's go to the next question. Removing common factor of -1. So what is a common factor of -1? So usually we want to have the variable at the very start. So unlike -3 minus 2x, we want -2x plus 3. I don't know why, that's just how it works. But now you'll realize, oh look, we can't simplify anything. So what happens instead of -2x? I would just factor out a negative, or factor out a -1. So this it becomes 2x minus 3, because it was originally plus 3. So we factor that out, and 4x minus 6. Now look what happens. We can do it now. So we can factor it out with 2. So let's do the bottom. So 2, and that's going to be 2x minus 3. And then now look, since they're all multiplied together, we can go ahead and cross this out. And what is that going to equal to? -1 over 2. Because there's still a negative to this. Remember? -1 over 2. And now we have to talk about restrictions. So 4x minus 6 is equal to 0. Remember, we simplified it to become 2x minus 3. And in this case, our bracket cannot equal to 0. So 2x minus 3 cannot equal to 0. But, so you might think this is going to give us 2 different results. But really it's not. It's all going to equal to x cannot equal to 3 over 2. Simply because that's just the simplifying method. Simplifying issue. There's no issues of actual math. It's just simplification. So in this case, we only have one restriction. And look at the question. It asks us to simplify and give out the restriction. So our most simplified answer will be -1 over 2, and x cannot equal to 3 over 2. Now let's do 4. So when we have a trinomial in both the numerator and denominator, this is where we have to, work on our factoring skills. Really, factoring is very, very important. If you did not learn that, well, you probably should. You have to learn it in grade 10. If you don't remember, go back through your grade 10 worksheets. Try to see what's up because it's really, really important. So, when we have a 1 as the number term of the x squared, or the largest degree, the highest degree term, that is called, well, a simple trinomial. So we have 1 here. So we usually do the crossing method. So how do we get 3 from -10? Well, we do. Okay, I'll just do it right away because most people can do that. So it's going to be x plus 5 and x minus 2. And now these two will give us -10. And then plus 5 minus 2 is going to give us 3 over uh, x plus 5 and x plus 3. Most people can see this right away. Cross these out, equals to x minus 2 plus 3. However, I did not erase this step because usually I would erase it. But so this, we're actually having a denominator here. This is our entire denominator here. So we cannot ignore the fact that x plus 5 was our denominator at one point. So we have to make sure that we write that in the restriction. So x does not equal to -5 or -3. How do we do that? So x plus 3 equals to 0. Move that over there. So x equals -3. And then that's pretty much it. And that is all for this question. X cannot equal to -5, -3, and then that was the most simple form. And we have one more example here. So, trinomial numerator and denominator, but this time instead of giving us easy to do simple trinomials, we're gonna have some pretty hard, well, not hard, we're gonna have some decently hard complex trinomials. So let's do the crisscross thing that we always like to do. The factor of 15 are 3, 5. So what happens to make this? We'll do plus 5, and then we'll do minus 3, which is gonna give us the answer because that's -y. So this is 5 minus 6, which is gonna be that. So let's write it out. X minus 3, x minus 3, 2x plus 5. Factoring should really be one of the core things that you will always have to learn. If you don't know how to do this, not so good. Oh, sorry, it was y. Y minus 3, 2y plus 5. This is literally one of the core steps you have to know. If you don't, not good. And then 4 and 4, that's a little harder to do because you have to think about it for a second. If you have 2, 2, and then you have 1, 3, that doesn't give you that big of an answer. So you have to do 1, 4, and then let's think how that combines us to get that. So we can see right there, 2 minus, so -3 and -1. So right here, we will get the answer right away. 4y minus 1, y minus 3. And then we cross this out. So we'll get 2y plus 5 over 4y minus 1. Restriction is that 4y cannot equal to 1. So y cannot equal to 1 over 4 and 3. And that is our restriction. Very simple. And that is our simplified form. 2y plus 5 over 4y minus 1. That is pretty much the lesson. I usually will only talk about the examples simply because that's all you have to know. But today, I'm going to go through some examples for you because people keep on forgetting that you can only factor and cross it out if it's in multiplication. So let's do it. So 1b, that's what I want to talk about, b. So what happens to the top and bottom? You have to factor. The top maximum we can factor is 3a. That's going to give us 2a plus 3. Bottom, that's a 12a squared. So we can only do our best here. So that's going to be 2a plus 3 over 12. That's going to be 12 divided by 3, 4. A2 minus a, or a. This was some lesson from lesson 1 or lesson 2 where we simplified simple rationals. That was it. So always keep the simple rules in mind. And what else is there that I wanted to talk about? The rest was pretty straightforward. Yeah, let's just do the hardest one. 6L. 6L. This can't get too hard. So we're gonna it's a factor question. So negative one, negative one. Whenever you see M, and all of that, don't care about it. Just take it as one number. Think about it as one term. You don't have to be scared of M, or something. That's just two terms. There's nothing to worry about in there. Let's do it. So 2m squared minus 2m squared. Let's do that. So minus 1 minus 1. So it's plus 1 minus 1. No, it's minus 1 plus 1. Sorry, I crisscross it right there. That's going to be there. So instead of writing some x minus 1, we're going to do m minus n. And then 2m plus n. So at the end, it's going to come out as 2m squared plus mn minus 2mn, which is give you negative mn, and then negative n squared, over 4. Since this time we have a decently small number, we're actually just well, okay. So when we have when the middle number is rather small, we will usually use we'll usually use 2 2. However, sometimes it's a little different. So let's just get straight to it. 2 2, and then on the right we'll have 1 and 3. Let's see. So 1 and negative 3. So that's going to be plus. Okay, so plus 1 and minus 3. Simplify that. That works. So we have plus 4 plus 2 minus 6. Okay, so we'll have 2m minus 1 minus n. And then, sorry, 2m plus n and 2m minus 3. So this will cross out. And then the final answer will be m minus n over 2m minus 3n. Now let's state the restrictions. So 2m plus n equal to 0. People get really terrified when we get into these kind of stuff, but really it's not terrifying at all. Move it over and do the math. 2m equals negative n. M equals to negative n over 2. M cannot equal to. And then 2m minus 3n equals 0. 2m equals 3n. M equals to over 2. So the restrictions is m cannot equal to 3n over 2 or n over 2 negative. And then this is our simplified expression, and this is our restriction. And that was the last example, and this is all your homework. This is, I believe, on page 41 of the textbook that I linked in the YouTube description for those that's catching up, and that's pretty much it.